And Will, whenever you're ready, I don't see the slides. I just see your
Hold on just a second.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
good afternoon, everyone. My name is Aisha Sabor. I serve on our Corridors of Opportunity team. And I'm going to give, like Will said, just a quick overview and intro, which is hopefully refreshing to many of you about Corridors of Opportunity as a whole and as an initiative. So Corridors of Opportunity is a demonstration of the city's commitment to supporting equitable investment and opportunity, holistic neighborhood revitalization, and facilitating the ability for long-term residents to stay in place in 6 identified areas. And those areas are the Betty's Ford Road, Roswell's Ferry Corridor, Freedom Wilkinson, West Boulevard, Sugar Creek I-85, Central Albemarle, and of course, North Graham and North Tryon. And this work is very much rooted in helping to build legacies and allow opportunities for legacies to grow for residents in Charlotte. So our framework is rooted in 6 what we call work stream themes, which may sound familiar to you because they are pulled from the 2040 Comprehensive Plan. 2040 Comprehensive Plan has 10. We are focused on 6 of them, which really seem to resonate well with our work and with the community. And those workstream themes are housing access for all, diverse and resilient economic opportunity, integrated natural and built environment, safe and equitable mobility, retaining culture and identity, and healthy, safe, and active communities. So as a holistic picture of where we are all in with Corridors of Opportunity funding, we are $72 million in across all 6 corridors in the last 2.5 to 3 years. And so you can see the breakdown also rooted in our work streams of where funding is going is in housing, economic opportunity, healthy, safe, and active communities, safe and equitable mobility, integrated natural and built environment, and of course, retaining culture and identity. So you can see the breakdown of where dollars are being spent across our work streams. And this list here is really to show a year in review of the work that's been in progress, implemented, taking place in each of the corridors of opportunity in 2022. It's a pretty long list, so I won't read through all of them, but just to pull out a few intersection improvements in Betty's Ford Corridor on Oak Lawn, doing in West Boulevard some placemaking opportunities in the West Boulevard corridor. For Sugar Creek, we have a group of business owners who are in the process of forming a business association and making strides towards formalizing that every day. In Albemarle, we have our Staying in Place pilot in the Winterfield community. And in North Graham and Tryon, of course, we are in the playbook development process. In the spring, we will kick off engagement in Freedom Wilkinson corridor. But in the meantime, there's still a lot of work that's in line with what we'll be doing upcoming going on right now, including Silver Line project coordination and of course our business matching grant program.
Well, thanks, Aisha.
Sure.
So we had a couple join us while Aisha was going over that overview. So welcome. I'm going to hop into the sort of a quick review of the planning process and engagement review that we've had over the past few months. For those that may not be aware, or just in an effort to refamiliarize you with the actual study area that we're talking about, we have what we're calling the area of influence outlined in the black dotted line. So that's 85 to the north, 77 to the west, 277, and then up sort of in between North Davidson and Tryon, up to Sugar Creek. So that's the 3,600 acre area of influence that we're talking about. But then we have two different focus areas. We have our corridor focus area, which starts on Graham Street around Camp North End and goes all the way up to 85, where a lot of industrial uses are. And then actually, if you take a right down Atondo off of Graham, that corridor focus area extends there to Tryon as well. We also have 3 catalyst sites, so three sites that we recognized had unique potential based off of available land and proximity to proximity uptown and just their location inside of the community. And that's that's still at Hay Courts. That's the city-owned land that is actually behind the fire department headquarters that was going to be the location for the Joint Communications Center, but has since moved away from that idea. But that's a big opportunity there. And then also re-envisioning what could happen there at Double Oak School site as well. Those are our 3 catalyst sites. Bit of a project timeline update for you. We are at month 12 here in December, and we are presenting to you today our prioritization results and engagement results. But afterward, after that, we are going to myself and the folks that are assisting me are going to finalize this report and hopefully have something that community can review by February. Sometime in February. So we're going to, after this meeting's over, we're going to start working hard on getting this playbook completed for review, and then after that, implementation and actually assigning dollars to projects and programs will begin. Quick review of the process that we engaged in. So really early on, we cataloged every project and program idea that existed from existing planning processes in the area, and that identified over 200 projects and programs and ideas. Step 2, we engaged with the community. So we listened and learned from our stakeholder workshops and individual interviews. And then from that engagement, we were able to add an additional 50 community identified projects. And that process really helped us draft the narrative that we're discussing today. Also built into that engagement was the ability to refine. So to refine our findings and prioritize projects, and also to validate what we've heard through feedback loops. And that's sort of what today is operating as well, to the an ability for us as staff members to present this information to you, the community, and hear back from you. And hopefully, we've got everything right. And then the next step is, as I mentioned before, is to implement this playbook and and start to find projects that can be funded immediately. Quick review of community engagement. We had sort of a 5-part engagement plan. So we had our kickoff meeting in September, I believe. Then beginning of October, we had individual interviews and virtual workshops. We had, in the middle of engagement, we had a quick survey that helped us prioritize particular programs that the community thought would be most impactful to the corridor. Then in November, we had a walking tour, and then today is our last bit of engagement. That resulted in over 15 hours of interviews and workshops. We had 15 unique workshop attendees, but those 15 generally attended each workshop that we had. So they were all really well attended. And then we had almost 20 walking tour attendees where we traversed around 2 miles through the corridor. And here's what we've heard from the community throughout all of our engagement. These are some recurring ideas that popped up numerous times, and so we thought it was worth memorializing and presenting to the community today. We certainly heard that there was a need for a clear identity and brand that would assist this area, the north end and this corridor, to create a sense of place that largely exists through the beautiful historic neighborhoods that are inside of this area, and also the unique building stock that is along the corridor with older industrial buildings as well. But there was a sense that there's a need to memorialize that and formalize it in a way that creates a clear sense of a clear brand for the area. Also improving education and communication for available programs. So that's things that exist, right? To make sure that folks inside the community understand what exists and what's available for them to use right now, and making sure that it's clear to them. Also, the need for enhanced safety and walkability rose to the top a lot. We heard that we heard that almost every time that we spoke. And then also the last two were something that we heard quite a bit, and that's the adaptive reuse of existing building stocks, and that's residential and industrial and your unique commercial buildings, but also providing a mixture of housing types for folks in all stages of life. And here's what we've heard for the three for the three catalyst sites. For Delahaye Courts, folks noted that they'd like to reimagine the site with a mixture of supportive uses. So any redevelopment initiative for Delahaye Courts to provide a mixture of supportive uses, not just residential, but whole host of supportive kind of neighborhood service uses. Then also providing home ownership opportunities, if possible as well, not just rentals, but also the ability to own as well. For Double Oaks school site, we heard similar things. We heard that there was a need, if Double Oaks happens to transition to housing in some way, shape, or form, that the inclusion of affordable housing would be very important. And then also that we heard that the community wants a seat at the table, that no matter what happens, to make sure that the folks that are going to be impacted by this potential redevelopment, that they are able to sit down and envision what it might look like in the future. Regarding the city-owned land at North Graham and Statesville, again, that's directly behind the fire headquarters. We heard a lot that folks wanted to make that site a transformative gateway into the north end, and that could be done a whole host of ways. But we heard that it would be great to have a place with a mixture of uses, and also consider a community-centered use as an anchor. We also heard that there was a desire to integrate some green and open space into that as well. And so from what we've heard, and Justin, if you don't mind, could you put this vision statement into the chat so folks can look at it as we continue? Thanks. So from all that we've heard, staff was able to draft a vision statement to present to you today, and I'm going to read it out loud, and feel free to read it in detail in chat. And we'd certainly like to hear if there's something not quite right with it, or we'd also like to hear if you think that this is a great description of a vision for the corridor over the next decade or so. But it reads as follows: the North Graham North Tryon corridor is a vibrant, inclusive and growing community that cherishes its history and is forging its own sense of place. The corridor is a place where the community and its assets, both natural and built, are preserved, whose neighborhood fabric is reconnected with mobility options for all, housing is affordable and attainable, and new opportunities are created through intentional and equitable development. And so with that, we'll transition into our projects reveal. And we will present these in 6, so we call them work streams, but the six themes that that Aisha mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation. So we've grouped them into housing access for all, mobility, et cetera. But I wanted to make sure that you all were aware of how staff took these projects and ranked them. So again, we had identified 200 projects from existing plans and other places. And then we heard from the community and added another 50 to that. So we took that project list and asked our implementation team leads and their support staff to prioritize those and to find the ones that work the best for the corridor. And so they did that through this methodology. First, we wanted to make sure that any project, program, or partnership addressed Corridors of Opportunity program goals. We wanted to make sure that when they were ranking them, they considered whether or not it addressed or met city initiatives. We certainly wanted to make sure that it aligned with community feedback from our stakeholder workshops and survey. And then we wanted to make sure and consider at least whether or not the timeline was strategic and whether or not a project was attainable. So with that, staff was able to select their top 10. Sometimes it was a couple more than 10, sometimes a few less, but to select the projects from that list that best met what we had heard from the community through our engagement. And what you'll see as we talk through these projects, you're going to probably hear a couple words repeated a lot, right? But what that means is we were able to distill these projects into project priorities or sort of themes for the corridor for the North Graham corridor specifically, and that was projects, programs, and partnerships related to housing, related to the preservation of existing building stock, related to connections. So what I mean by that is just improvements to the built environment that allow folks to travel in ways other than the automobile. So pedestrian connections, shared use paths, et cetera. Community organizations, so the importance of community organizations to sort of guide this plan into reality. And then the power and importance of partnerships and leveraging private investment. And so with that, we're going to transition to housing access for all. How I'll present these is I'll note the things that we had heard specifically related to this particular subject, and then we'll have a subject matter expert from the city discuss those projects in detail. We don't have anybody for housing access for all, so I will take a stab at it. But here's what we heard through our engagement regarding housing access for all. We know that folks noted they wanted to provide missing middle housing opportunities to address continued displacement in the North End, allow residents to age and stay in place, and again, to improve communication to ensure residents know of existing programs they could benefit from. And with that, we were able to develop a list of top projects. And the top two are related to our catalyst site. So working with the community to reimagine redevelopment of Dilhay Courts, and then do the same for Double Oaks as well. We also wanted to increase the availability of funds for homeownership down payment assistance programs, increasing housing education and housing rehabilitation programs as well. And then, where possible, certainly want to preserve existing unsubsidized affordable housing where it exists inside the corridor. And then increase programs and funding to those programs to ensure that those that want to stay in place are able to stay in place. And then, also advocate for housing trust fund dollars and increase missing middle housing opportunities for smaller projects. I think that if I remember correctly, it's easier to do single units or larger affordable home communities, but that number of 5 to 49 units is sort of a niche that needs to be addressed, and it is harder to find funding for. Next, we're going to chat about diverse and resilient economic opportunity. So here's what we've heard related to this this core theme. You heard that folks want to rehab existing building stock, encourage corridor businesses to hire corridor residents, and create a job readiness program for teens. We heard that folks like the idea of a potential organization of a merchants organization, incubator spaces for entrepreneurs, and also a need to assist businesses in the corridor with site selection. And with that, transition to our top projects. And I think we have Alexis on, who's going to talk about a few of these.
Yeah, hi, good morning, or actually afternoon now. Thank you, William, for the introduction. I'm Alexis Gordon with the city's economic development team. There are quite a few things that were suggested, so our list was a little long for priorities, but we did think these were very important. I'm not going to go into depth on each of them, but of course, at any time you're allowed to ask us questions or to get in contact with our team to give you more information. But the biggest ones I kind of wanted to point out was our equitable development program and as a way for us to help make sure that folks who are interested in developing in their own corridor where they are from are able to find out what that takes. And so we're looking at possibly doing either a mentorship program or another organizational based program that can help really with our partners for people to learn about what it takes to do private-public partnerships and to do development in a corridor. Another thing that we wanted to talk about is, and that will probably pair a lot with these ready site programs. A lot of times I know neighbors will drive by a site and say, that looks like it's prime and ready to become something new. How does that happen? So those two things are probably going to go hand in hand very closely. Another thing we want to do is just kind of talk about that entrepreneur space. So one of the things is just to make sure that we know our business owners have access to different partner programming that help you with entrepreneurship, that can help make more vibrant businesses in this corridor. Additionally, once those businesses are up and running, it's really good for there to be that collective group that puts together all the pieces in the program to help make sure that you have a business association. So along with that, and maybe an incubator space. What's different than a co-working space and an incubator space, and why this would need to be a partner program, is that an incubator space comes with more than just a space to plug in and have internet. It also has programming and ways to help a business owner get started. And so with that, we'll go to the next slide. So another thing that we wanted to talk about again is what are those different sites where we can have public-private partnerships? How can the city work together on that? One of the things we really want to do is help businesses know more about our matching grant program. So that's our facade grant, our interior grant for upfitting the inside of your shops and brick and mortar stores. Again, we talked a lot about youth and career readiness. How do we help with that? And so we'll work with how do we get more people to know about the Mayor's Youth Employment Program? How do we look at actual apprenticeships? How do we make sure folks find the best career path possible for good opportunities? And so that just gives a pretty good summation of the top economic development content.
Cool, thank you, Alexis. So we'll transition to integrated natural and built environment. Here's what we've heard from you all through our engagement. Like to see the Urban Arboretum Trail and other trails and greenways completed inside the corridor. Activation of Double Oaks Park to create a signature park in North End that largely doesn't exist. To place utilities underground, invest in solar power and sustainability initiatives, and generally speaking, to expand parks, greenways, and the tree canopy inside the corridor as well. And we will, from integrated natural and built environment, we will have, actually, I don't know that we have anybody for that.
It's me.
Oh, it's you, Andrew? Sorry.
Yeah,
Thanks, Andrew.
No problem. So we'll be kind of quick here. I think we really wanted to zero in on park spaces. There were kind of four main goals, we tried to prioritize projects based on what we heard from stakeholders was park space, big priority, and that being new park space, sort of connecting different parks through connections that were green and met sort of the same goal of a park. And then on top of that, tree canopy and stormwater management were essential components, especially in this area where there is a lot of industrial space. And so trying to maximize and make the most of opportunities to increase tree canopy and manage stormwater. Where we try to zero in on, I'll wait to talk about A and B because I think we have a map coming next where we'll be able to walk through what those are. But the Urban Arboretum Trail, I just wanted to highlight that. That is a program in partnership between the city's tree canopy preservation program and our placemaking program to kind of utilize underutilized spaces in Charlotte where there might be underutilized right of way or city-owned parcels where we could create places that have trees incorporated to meet both of those goals. And so we saw a really good opportunity there and support there from the community to prioritize that pretty highly. And then I think beautification grants, there are grants out there and funds out there for tree canopy maintenance in private residential yards, but then also master gardener grants that help folks maintain their yards on their own lot. And so trying to build capacity in this corridor for folks to apply for these grants was kind of the first priority and something that we really wanted to zero in on is capacity building to get those funds into the community's hands. And so that's kind of what we zeroed in on there. And I'll ask you to the next slide. You see a map here of the corridor. There's 2 green dots, and these are kind of 2 areas that we identified as good potential opportunities for a new park. The first is kind of right by the fire department headquarters, kind of at the tip of Statesville and Graham. And this was identified over and over as a great opportunity, as a large area, a lot of existing impervious, paved over area there that could be converted to a park to improve stormwater management, but also create a nice space for the community and increase tree canopy. And then the second is along Coleman Avenue. You see it down by 36th Street there. And there are several floodplain parcels down in that area that the county owns. And there's been a lot of conversation about converting those parcels to a park. So it's a good area or a large area that could be converted in the future to sort of an iconic park. And then the purple line you see here, it's kind of combining 2 different projects. The one that runs along Norris Ave is as some of you probably know, a Duke utility power easement that has been talked about as possibly being some sort of trail or linear park that the community could use. And Duke has done programs like this in the past where they give up, certain rights or not give up, but allow development to happen in certain ways underneath utility easements. And so that was kind of one of those connecting trails that we wanted to prioritize. And then the second runs along Graham Street. And that I believe is what is referred to as the gully, but it's an existing rail right of way that kind of runs, I think, to Camp North End. It ends there at sort of at the westernmost point, but essentially it's just a right of way that's sitting out there today that could be converted to a future park as well. So then the last thing I'll mention is a placemaking activation along Double Oaks Park. There's a greenway that runs along that stream and really isn't a tie into that park. The park, Double Oaks Park, I believe right now is really just an open field. And so trying to activate that space and draw folks into that park and make it more of a destination is kind of one of those projects we wanted to prioritize.
Cool. Thanks, Andrew. So let's transition to healthy, safe, and active communities. So here's what we've heard. There's a desire to rehab existing building stock, to expand free subsidized Wi-Fi and mobile device lending in the area, to eliminate the North End food desert, to increase business grants, facade improvement grants, et cetera, to improve lighting and safety, and to invest in the natural and built environment in a way that creates a sense of place. Do not think we have anybody on the call to present these, so I'll be doing that. A couple of the big ideas. I'll allow you all to read these as I chat, but one is to expand partnerships that bring access to fresh food to the community. I know that that's been an ongoing issue for a while. I'm certainly aware that things are changing, and that could be addressed quickly. But the folks that prioritized this felt that it was important enough to be prioritized in this list. Also noted a need, and we heard this a lot from the community, as I just mentioned, to invest in the expansion of the Wi-Fi network in the area, and work where at all possible with the community and property owners to support the adaptive use of existing building stock in the area. And one of the last ones, item G, is to preserve and partner with Big M Stables. I think everybody on this call is likely familiar with Big M and sort of the cultural significance that it has on this corridor in particular, and the city as a whole. So there was an unidentified, this group identified this as a project that could allow this potentially to continue as it's operating, and to get creative in ways that we could see this continue, that program, their writing program, and the stables in general to stay and to continue being the community anchor that it is. So now we're on to safe and equitable mobility. So we heard that folks wanted to invest in pedestrian infrastructure and street lighting around the intersections 277, specifically to add bike lanes and to invest in complete streets, to provide a circulator or mobility hubs to better connect the folks that live, work, and play in the corridor to transit options, and then to provide covered bus stops with some artwork components. So I think we have Sam to present some ideas for us regarding safe and equitable mobility. Sam?
Thanks, Will. Yeah, my name is Samantha Miller. I'm with General Services, and I'm just going to try and hit on a couple of the top ones that we thought were really important. Obviously, looking for a transit connection in here, we're looking at 2 different mobility hubs that will involve a new type of transit called micromobility. And I have one of my counterparts here as well if you have any questions more on it. But it would actually offer some micro transit. So a Lyft or Uber-like service that can connect you to light rail and other buses or more consistent transit options. We've also looked at realigning certain intersections like Woodward Avenue and 24th Street and Atondo Avenue and Graham Street, and looked at doing a shared use path on North Graham Street to make connections that are not there yet. Go to the next slide, Will. So just continuing on that pedestrian and bicycle, different types of transportation options, looking at sidewalk improvements on North Tryon to fill in gaps, providing an actual crosswalk and some sidewalk on West Craighead and Zolfi, as well as improving the rest of the sidewalk along North Tryon at 30th and 31st Street, which connects us to the greater light rail options. And then obviously, lighting is so important to being more mobile in the area. And so we would look at upgrading the street lights along multiple streets. And our final project is an Atondo Avenue street conversion, which would allow us to incorporate some new bicycle facilities into that area and support the Camp Netherland area as well. And this just kind of gives you an overview map of all of those projects and how they'll really interconnect. And we tried to spread them out around the corridor to really benefit all of the citizens in the area to have a more walkable area.
Cool, thanks, Sam. And finally, we're going to talk about what we've heard about identity and culture in the area. And so we consistently heard that there needs to be sort of the creation of a North End Gateway to incorporate history into infrastructure where possible, to preserve existing affordable housing in historic neighborhoods, and again, to support the adaptive reuse of existing building stock. And we have my boss, Aaron Chantre, to talk about top projects for retaining culture and identity.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So yeah, this was a really exciting work stream to be part of. As Charlotte is rapidly changing, topics like retaining identity and culture have become more and more important to the work that we do. And so I'll quickly go through these projects. First and foremost, we heard that from the community and all of the engagement that we did, that really creating a brand and an identity for the North End community was a priority, and then implementing that through wayfinding and branding and gateways for the corridor was a priority, so that we could really celebrate the identity of this corridor through that way. Building an app to document the history and creating an interactive cultural experience through technology rose to the top. And then the next three are historic district surveys for different neighborhoods in the corridor that are part of getting these places on the National Register, which is a preservation tool of course, history and culture and identity. That could have also lead to tax breaks for those property owners. Do the next slide. Enhancing the business match grant program came up in multiple work streams. This is a program that really allows the preservation of not only local businesses, but the buildings they're in, which obviously contributes to the identity of the corridor. And public and private partnerships to the aid in the preservation of buildings and businesses and institutions. We heard from developers that really considering the permitting process for historical buildings to make that as easy as possible to promote their preservation as opposed to their demolition. Preserving or celebrating history in communities through Adopt a Street for our existing Adopt a Street program. And then looking at ways to use placemaking as a way to celebrate identity through infrastructure investments that will already be occurring, and then to possibly explore a municipal service district. So those were the project programs and partnerships that we heard most as it relates to culture, preserving culture and identity.
Thanks, Aaron. So to recap what we just heard, we sort of to bring up a important, what I think is an important point is that we started with 250 projects, programs, partnerships, and we were able through this prioritization method and through what we heard from you, the community members, refine that list to 55 projects. And what I think is most important is that 12 new projects, so 12 of the projects that you just heard listed today were identified by the community. They're new, they're things that we didn't think of, right? They're the things that we heard directly from the community. So 22% of the total projects were identified by the community. And I think that's pretty exciting. That we didn't, the city didn't have it all figured out, that we were able to hear from you and find those ideas to be pretty important to the quarter going forward. So a quick summary, next steps. So I think Justin put the vision statement in the chat. So I would ask that you read that and and give us feedback if you have any on that vision statement. And then remember what we talked about regarding our projects and sort of the 5 big themes of corridor priorities. So housing, preservation of existing building stock, improving connections, community and partnerships, and let us know if we got it right, and certainly let us know if we got it wrong. Again, we intend to complete draft playbook by the end of January, and hope to have something in front of the community the following month. And then again, we will, and once that starts, then we'll begin our implementation process and creation of a roadmap, which really outlines the sort of the 3 to 5 year project list for this corridor, and sort of formalizes what will be funded in the near term. And that'll kick off as soon as we finish this playbook process. With that, I think that we have a handful of folks on here from the community, and we need your comments. So I'll leave this. Yeah, it's open. I'll kind of leave it open for a Q&A. And also feel free to email myself or Aisha if there's things that you'd like to talk about offline. That's certainly fine as well. But yeah, with that, that's the end of our presentation. Love to hear from the community if there's anything that you'd like to talk about or any questions that you have. I think that we've got most of our subject matter experts still on. If it's project related, or if it's process or program related, myself or Aisha can certainly answer that as well. So with that, I'll open the floor up. Okay, I don't want it to be quiet for too long. So I assume that that means, well, there may be comments, right? So certainly feel free to reach out to myself, william.linville@charlottenc.gov, or Aisha, in the coming days and weeks, and let us know what you think about what we've presented today and the project lists. I imagine that this presentation will be added to the website pretty soon. So you can also re-review that as well. Feel free to email me if you'd like to see this presentation as well. Sorry, I think did somebody have a question?
Yeah, I see a question from, Aaron took care of it, but Thomas asked, where can I read more about some of the business grants mentioned? And Aaron Gillespie just sent a link in the chat to learn more about our business matching grants program.
Okay,
and
great.
Thomas, you can feel free to reach out to me or Will too if you need additional information.
Yeah, thanks for watching the chat. So, Mr. McAllister, you're off mute. Did you have a question for us? I just want to make sure. We ended.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you, though.
Okay, great. All right. Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for time. Thank you, city staff, being on here and helping with this presentation. Thank you to citizens and stakeholders for taking time out of your Monday lunch to allow us to present this to you. Again, we are available to answer questions as they might pop up. So we're more than happy to answer those as they come in. And with that, I wish everybody a happy holiday. And we will again have something to present, hopefully by February or a little later, regarding the final playbook. So thank you all for your time, and I hope you all have a great week.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.